Hi everybody, how are you doing? Welcome to my channel. For those that don't know me, my name is Tanya, and today I'm going to be showing you my artwork Meteor Spirit and how I created it with the acrylic pouring technique.
The Halloween edition. First, prepare your canvas with gesso.
Sorry about that. As I was saying, first you need to prepare your canvas with gesso. This is to make sure that the paint has proper grip and that you have an even coat underneath. To get a really nice result, I recommend that you at least do 2 coats and 1 coat into each direction. So first you can go vertically, and in the next layer you can go horizontally. Make sure that you let the layers dry before you apply the second one. For this acrylic pour, I'm going to be using Floetrol. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, that's not usually the method that I use, but I wanted to try this out and see if I can get different kinds of cells, different kind of organic shapes. So here you see me mixing the paints. I find that this is a part where it's very subjective. Every artist that does pours, they will have a different formula on how they do the paint. I think best thing to keep in mind is to have fun with the process and just try out different things, experiment with it once you have kind of like understood what you need to get. And for me, what that means is I need to get the paint in like such a thickness that it is a bit gloopy, but at the same time runny enough so that the mousse can actually paint on the canvas, but not move so much so that it's not too liquid that it will run off the canvas. So it's kind of like finding that perfect balance. I like to compare it a bit with like pancake batter, or if you don't do pancakes, maybe you can think about hand sanitizers. There are some that are like gel-like, but they're kind of still runny. I hope that it helps describe the thickness of the paint that I tried to achieve. And in this particular attempt or experiment that I was doing myself, as I was saying, I'm using Floetrol, and I did not use as much water as I usually do. It was mostly paint and then the Floetrol, because I had that big tub, which meant I had a bit of it to play with. Once you have your paints mixed and with the right consistency, it's time to prepare your pouring cup. And what that means essentially is you pour the colors that you want in the sequence that you like on top of each other, as you see me do here. The colors that I chose for this particular one, as I was kind of like inspired by Halloween, I was thinking about what are the typical colors that like villains in Disney movies or other like fantastical movies are created in, and usually they have some kind of green or purple, and of course a lot of blacks. But so that's why I went with these colors: the one lilac, one kind of like darker purple bluish tone, and then a really like neon green. Another thing that I was testing out here were the 2 different types of pours. So on the first canvas that you see here, I poured some white underneath to see if I can get that to shine through by pouring the remaining paint on top. And while it was fun trying it out and experimenting with this technique, I didn't feel that it was quite as successful. As you can see, I'm not getting any real cells here. The white wasn't shining through as much as I wanted it to. Maybe I needed to do a bit of a swipe method, but that's also another technique I'm still like learning and experimenting with. I'm not yet able to control it as much as I like. So in the second artwork, you will see the technique that I usually use, which is the dirty pour. It's the pour where you flip the canvas with the filled cup, and you just let the paint out in a very different way instead of manually pouring it as I did with this one. Another fun part of acrylic pouring is the torching. You just grab a little torch. Usually it's like one that you also use in the kitchen for like a creme brulee or something like that. But of course use one that's dedicated for your painting. And you want to hover over the artwork, so you don't want to get too close and start burning off the paint or whatever other medium that you're using in there. You want to kind of go relatively fast over them and start to kind of make bubbles appear, and then you can wiggle the artwork a little bit further so that those bubbles that you've just created with the torch expand a bit more and can be more visible. So as you can see there's a few cells that I was able to create with the torch, but still it wasn't really what I was hoping for. When you're doing some torching, make sure that you're doing this in a ventilated area because there may be fumes coming off. And also make sure not to do this right under a fire alarm. I triggered mine once and that was a disaster. As you can see, my hands are covered in paint, but the alarm was going off. So anyway, save yourself the trouble. Let's move on to the painting that actually turned out nice. What you want to do here is essentially repeat the same steps, but I'm going to use the different technique, which is the dirty pour, as you can see me do here. So you place your canvas on top of the cup that has the paint in it, and then you flip it over. You then move your cup around so that the paint can flow out, and you manipulate then the flow of the paint by shifting the canvas. To reiterate the steps that we are taking, it's first you want to have your paint mixed with the Floetrol or any other medium that you use. Assemble your pouring cup. In this case, I've used then the dirty pour technique to flip the paint onto it. And last, we're going to torch it again to reveal, to sort of like evaporate a bit of that medium that we've used, and so that it creates those little cells. Where possible, I like to avoid being wasteful, so I often reuse my cups where possible. And also you see me here as I am moving the paint around. There's a lot of dripping that happens when you're doing acrylic pour, as you can see in my hands. It gets messy. So I try to collect on the bottom some of that paint that drips down. And as you can see me, and I'm very sorry that it's right in the corner, it wasn't recorded well. But you can then use that paint to cover some of your corners. Sometimes you might not have enough paint, and that's the worst thing that can happen, that you have the most beautiful artwork and then you can't finish the paint. So that's what that cup is for, and if there's plenty of paint left, you can potentially even create a whole new artwork. Another thing that I like to do as I am moving my paint around, sometimes you don't want to be stretching the details that are showing on your canvas. So I use my fingers to glide on the edges and on the sides of the paint to sort of like whether use paint that's already on my hands from all the dripping, or I kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but essentially like pull gently with my fingers the paint towards the edge so that it's kind of covered. It also sometimes allows for the paint to flow a little bit more if there's other bit of paint on it and not just the plain canvas. And then lastly, we want to torch it one more time and see what we get out of it. When you're done with your artwork, you want to let it dry. I usually let it dry for maybe 2 to 3 days, just forget about it. And then once it's fully dry, you want to varnish it. I personally recommend to varnish it with whether a glossy or a satin gloss. I have tried matte and it just dulls the colors a little bit. Usually when you're doing acrylic pour, you just want the colors to pop. And those are, I find, the best varnishes that help with that. A few more tips in terms of drying. So what I use, I have, you might not see it fully, but I'm using these kind of IKEA containers that also have like tops. So I don't have a really large space in my workshop, so I have to leave it in usually in areas that are often used. So I want to avoid whether dust to come on them or to have anything accidentally fall on them. so I usually cover them and seal them off. However, I leave a little bit of a gap so that the airflow can actually still be happening and that the artwork can actually dry. I also, when I fully close it, I notice that it just doesn't dry fully. And if you're using art panels like I am, when I'm creating the artwork, I place them a little bit higher with the cups inverted, as you have seen throughout the video. But when the canvas is, or the paint is drying, I've noticed that leaving them on those cups sometimes forces the art panel to sort of curl, as if like as the paint is drying, it's also sort of shrinking and it's therefore creating like a curve. I don't have that problem with regular canvas, so if you're using canvas, you can simply ignore that. But if you're using art panels like I am, I recommend to take away the cups and leave the panel flat on the ground wherever you're putting it on. Just of course make sure that there isn't paint underneath, that you clean that area beforehand, because else when everything has dried and you're trying to remove your art panel, it might be stuck to the ground. Once the artwork dried, I was able to see these sort of like ghosts or spirits that it kind of looked as if it was coming out from outer space. And that's why I ended up calling the artwork Meteor Spirits. Can you tell me in the comments if you can see them? For those that haven't found the spirits yet, it's this. Can you see the mouth? There's a little nose hole here. And the other one is down here. Can you see it? It has almost like a visor on the eyes and a mouth here. And if you look actually closer, there's another one here that almost looks like a horse. There's an eye, and here's the head shape. I hope you can see the Meteor Spirits. I'll see you in the next video. Bye! I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until then, see ya! Bye!